What's up, everybody? My name is Don Ziglioni, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming and hanging out with me today. I know it's been a while since my last video. I've been super busy, and I figured the best way to do this now is I just gotta film on the go. Gotta take my camera with me so that I can make this shit happen, all right? And right now, I'm getting a car wash, so I guess you guys can join me here. This damn virus got me touching these touch screens. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for the subscriptions, the following, the Twitch stream, the Patreon. You guys are awesome. The growth has been amazing. In fact, I have been so busy that I haven't really been able to film tutorials, so I'd like to thank you. It's loud. I'd like to thank you for your patience while I get these videos out. Therefore, here you are. Here I am. You guys are coming and hanging out while I get my car washed, right? So today's tutorial is going to be about equalizers, EQs. You hear it, you're going to use it every single session, no matter what. You know you're going to do it. A lot of you already know how to use equalizers, but I'll bet that there's still some features that you don't know exactly what they do. You probably don't know exactly what you do or what you're doing when you move all of these things around, right? So I'm going to teach you what every knob, every fader, every number means on any equalizer ever made, whether it's analog or digital, okay? So you're going to be able to walk into any studio, open up any software, and if there's an EQ, you're going to be able to recognize it, and you're going to be able to tackle it and take it down. You're going to know everything that I know about equalizers right now. Oh. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, if you're unclear about exactly what frequency is, how frequency is measured, please check out the video I made on frequency. It explains all of that, and I would highly suggest checking it out before moving on with this video. The link is in the description. So we're going to go over three different types of equalizers in this video. The first one is the parametric, the fully parametric EQ. We're going to go over the semi-parametric EQs, and we're also going to go over the graphic EQs. And so by the end of this video, you're going to know what all the different types are and what every single button and knob does. You will never be stumped when looking at an equalizer ever again, I promise. All right? So I've got a song loaded up. I also have some pink noise here for this tutorial. Now, pink noise contains every frequency in the range of human hearing. So this noise has 20 hertz in it. It's got 50 hertz. It's got 1,000, 2,000, all the way up to 20,000 hertz, right? So this will be a really good way to demonstrate what these equalizers are doing, okay? So let's start with this stock Pro Tools equalizer. So this is a parametric EQ. No matter what software you're using, I can almost guarantee that there is a parametric EQ that came with the software, and it probably looks something like this. So let's just start at the top. We've got our inputs and outputs right here. So when I play my noise, you see we've got an input signal, we've got an output signal. Right here I've got control for it, right? I've got my input. If I turn that down, well, guess what? Input goes down, so does the output. If I leave the input where it is and I've got my output, well, hey, now I've got control over where the output is. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? This also has a phase button right here, which is awesome. We're going to go over phase in a different video, so don't worry about what exactly that's doing, but this plugin does have it, and that is the symbol. Whenever you see that on any plugin, that means phase. Next up, we have our HPF and LPF. This stands for high pass filter and low pass filter, right? Now, the way I want you to understand this is that HPF is a low filter roll-off. Even though some people get it confused, high pass filter would have something to do with the highs and low pass filter would have something to do with the lows, right? But the way I like to remember it is high pass, it basically cuts off the low frequencies and lets the highs pass through the plugin. So it lets the highs pass through. If I switch this around and I go to my low pass filter, well, it's cutting off some of the frequencies, but it's letting the lows pass through, kind of like a security checkpoint or something on the road. And so that's the way I remember it. So with these high pass and low pass filters, we also have the different type of roll off or shelf that it's going to use. So we can actually use these as bell shaped frequency bands, which is kind of cool, right? And then we can move our frequency around. But for the most part, these filters, the high pass and the low pass, are usually just going to be roll offs just like that so that we can filter things out. I'll go ahead and play my pink noise. And you'll notice as I roll off more, the low frequencies go away. And so that's a way of just isolating the high frequencies, maybe the higher half of your frequencies, or just roll off some of the low end, you know. Opposite way, this is going to cut off those highs, right? It does exactly what it looks like. Now these filters also have a Q, which is your bandwidth. The Q stands for quality, and it's basically how many frequencies around the center frequency it affects. And I'll explain these a little bit more. This will all make sense once I get to the end of this plugin. I'll come back to that, all right? So moving on, we've got our LF, LMF, MF, HMF, HF, which stand for, and you'll get to know all of this yourself. We've got our low frequencies, our low mid frequencies, our mid frequencies, high mid frequencies, and high frequencies. So it does exactly what you think. So this here is our little pink box, and it controls our low frequencies. This button here is what type of shape we would like our EQ to form. We've got our shelf, and we've got our bell. And then we've got our Q, which is our Q, which doesn't do anything right now. And then our frequency. So you can see here that this dot is moving left and right, which is going on the frequency band. So if I were to boost it, then you can see it's making a shelf based on the shape that we picked. If I went in and picked bell, then it's going to create a bell. It's called a bell because it looks like a bell, right? So we'll just go ahead and leave it at shelf right here. This way you can hear what's going on. So this boosts or cuts the low frequencies. So you can hear those lows. If I wanted to, I could cut as well, which is kind of cool. Anytime you see the word in on a plugin, that means either in or out, which means either on or off. So we'll go ahead and turn that off for now, and we'll move on to this next one. This next one is missing something. It doesn't have these shapes like the low filter has. See, they're missing. So these are only going to be bell-shaped plugins. So if I go ahead and boost this, this is our low-mid frequencies. I have our frequency range right here. So it looks like we can go all the way down to 40 hertz in this band, all the way up to 1,000 hertz. So in this orange band, we've got from 40 to 1,000. That's just the range. So we get to pick that. Now I get to explain the Q and what that means. So that's our bandwidth. We have our center frequency, right? Which right now is set at 187.5 hertz. Every EQ is going to affect the surrounding frequencies, and how many of those surrounding frequencies is determined on your Q, or your bandwidth, right? So the Q is basically how many frequencies around your center frequency are being affected. So if I were to take this and turn it up, I get a very narrow Q. So you can see here visually, let's move it right here, right? Even though it's set at 529, that's the frequency that it's boosting. However, it's also still boosting some of these other frequencies around it, you know? So it looks like it's even giving a slight boost to everything right around maybe 400 up to the 529, and then right around here to 1,000. So it's affecting all of those frequencies around it. Now, if I lower the Q, you'll see it gets more and more wide. So it's affecting more and more frequencies, right? And everything is built on a graph. So you can see here we've got 0, which means this is 0 flat, absolutely nothing. This left side here is measured in decibels, so it's either going up decibels or down decibels. So if I bring it right here, then we can see that I am cutting this frequency, which is 258, right, down 6 decibels. So we know that we're going down 6 decibels right at 258. However, we can see, so if we split this in half, that would be about 3 decibels for right there. So it looks like 500 is probably being turned down about 2 decibels, right? Or if we came down here, maybe about right around 100, in between 50 to 100, you can see that even those frequencies are coming down by about a decibel or 2. So that's what that means. So you really can get completely different tones by playing with your bandwidth, and I'll go ahead and show you. Let's actually boost. So really narrow. We're getting a really specific frequency, not really affecting the other surrounding frequencies. But as I widen it up, listen. Kind of interesting, right? So now the rest is pretty self-explanatory. So here's how it goes. So we've got our low mids. Just to make it all make sense, we've got our mid frequency here, which is this yellow dot, and we can check the range of the frequency band. So this one here, the lowest it'll go to is 125 all the way up to 8 kilohertz. The green one looks like we go from 200 hertz all the way up to 18,000. And then on our high frequency, we can go anywhere between 1.8 kilohertz up to 20 kilohertz, which is the top range of human hearing. And each band does exactly the same thing, but for a different section of frequency bands, right? So whenever you're looking at an EQ and it looks something, you know, like this, and it's all over the place, that's exactly what's happening. So you should be able to take a graph just like this and know exactly what's happening, right? And you do know exactly what's happening right now. Looks like we're rolling off everything under 100 right here, you know, down to about 10 decibels we're cutting. Then we've got this crazy boost of frequency up 12, 13 decibels at 253, you know, and this is just a random setting, but to be able to see exactly what's happening with the numbers visually with this graph, this is exactly what's happening. Now, another thing to notice is as you boost frequencies, your input and output is going to change. So you remember how our output, right, was the same as our input because that's what we were doing. But if we go ahead and do like a nice little boost of frequencies or something like that, we should have a different volume level right here. So let's see. Oh, look at that. So the input stays the same, but the output is higher because we're boosting all those frequencies. So it's important to understand that when you do boosts or cuts in your frequencies, that is changing the total dynamic of your sound, right? So that's something to always keep in mind when you're mixing in the future. So that explains this stock EQ. It's very simple. There's really not much to it. And once you know what a Q is, frequency, gain, that's pretty much it, you guys. Knowing these shapes is also important, so let's go ahead and move to a different EQ, a different parametric EQ, and this one should be a little bit easier to understand. So this is the Renaissance EQ from Waves, and it's a very popular plugin. So looking at it, we can see it has a lot of the same features, just more compact, right? So we've got our graph. It goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, just like every EQ. So we can see that. We've got up to 12 decibels of boosting. I think it'll even go more than that. But as far as the graph is concerned, that's what we're looking at right there, okay? So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up here, we see these colored dots, which represent it. And they are also represented by the same color on their number of band, right? So they color-coded everything. And here we can start with number 1. Number 1, these are the shapes. What kind of EQ would we like this band to be? We've got a high pass, which will let the highs pass through and roll off the lows. We can turn it into a bell like the others. Or we can do one of these shelves. Now, look at number 2, though. We only have the option for bell or shelf. Same with 3, 4, 5, and then all the way up to the 6th band, which is the same as band 1, but it's got a high shelf and a low pass, right? So we're either shelving the highs or rolling off the highs. Now, it does exactly what the picture looks like. It's really not rocket science, okay? So let's start with this green dot right here since it's in the middle. This is band 3. And there is no minimum or maximum range that this band can control. It's going to go through the full spectrum of frequencies, right? So let's just go back to our box here. You see right here, it says gain. How many decibels would we like to boost or cut on this frequency band? So we'll just boost, I don't know, 7 decibels. We'll move the frequency to 1,000 something, and then we've got our Q, our quality, our bandwidth. So as you can see, I can move it narrow, I can move it wide, so it works exactly the same way as the other EQ. It's just different colors, different user interface, and ultimately, yeah, plugins do sound differently from each other, but you're going to want to start with the ones where their user interface is just easy for you to understand and move on from there, okay? So next up, let's look at these semi-parametric EQs. They work the exact same way, but they have less control. Now, all you need to do is understand what each knob does, and you can do anything with any equalizer. It's beautiful, right? So let's just slowly look at this and read. We've got boost. Okay, so that must be a boost of some sort. Attenuation is the same thing as lowering your volume. It's lessening the decibels. So you can either boost or raise, or you can cut or attenuate. It's just a fancy word, but a word you do need to know, right? So we've got CPS. What could that stand for? How about cycles per second, which is also another word for hertz or frequency. Very interesting. I highly suggest you check out that other video if that didn't make any sense to you, right? Oh, look right here. It says low frequency, high frequency. And now we've got bandwidth. Well, that's the same thing as Q. We already know that. So that's going to be how wide it is. So this is a beautiful thing. So let's listen to this and see what happens. We'll turn on our pink noise. Let's see, so we have 100 hertz here selected. Let's boost it. Interesting. So you can see we're boosting 100 hertz. If I move that, it changes the frequency at which it is boosting. Now if I turn that down and I cut, oh, it's cutting out 100 hertz. Crazy. Go figure, right? So very, very simple. And then, of course, if I move this around, that's just the frequency that it's going to cut it at, right? Usually on this plugin, I'll just either boost or cut. It really just depends. And so let's go to the boost and change our bandwidth. So it even says right here, sharp or broad, which means narrow or wide. And so it's right now at a very narrow, sharp, pointing at 100 hertz. Let's widen it up. You can kind of hear the difference. A little bit. We'll hear it more on this one, right? So let's go to our high frequencies. Let's do some boosting. This is 3,000. See, we've got the K in here, so these are thousands in our high frequencies. So we can boost 4,000. 5,000, 8,000, 10, 12, 16. Let's boost 10,000. Let's cut it 10,000. Let's cut it 10,000 and then make it a wide band. Very cool. So you can definitely hear what's going on with that. And that's how you just figure out how to use any other plugin. Let's look at a different one. So this is the classic SSL channel. You have to break down what each of these sections do, but the left side of this is your EQ, okay? You can see right here, just because we know some of the language, right? We see this word bell. I see kilohertz. I see decibels. Oh, look at these little pictures right here. Looks like a narrow Q and a wide Q. Very interesting. That must be the Q, you know? I see the bell. I see LF, LMF, HMF, you know? So these are all universal things, right? So let's go ahead and listen to this vocal track and figure out this EQ together, all right? Like I said, should be really easy. So we've got our filters. This little symbol right here obviously means that it's a low pass filter. This right here is a high pass filter. So we've got both of our highs and low pass filters here. So out means it's off. Let's go and roll off these highs. That's rolling off all the high frequencies. This one, rolling off the low frequencies. Right? Very simple. Now we've got this next section here, HF, high frequencies. dB stands for decibels, so we know that this is our boost, this is our cut. Kilohertz, so this must be our frequency, right? So it just takes a little bit of time to figure out exactly what we're doing. Now, this band here, I know this from experience and because of the shape here, this is set to be a shelf. Most high frequency and low frequency bands are going to automatically be shelving filters, unless you select Bell. So we'll go ahead and leave it at a shelf right now, and let's just go ahead and boost up 9 decibels to, I don't know, 14K. And let's see what that sounds like. And let's just sweep the filter. So that's controlling all of the high frequencies above whatever frequency we select. Now, if I select to Bell, that means the center frequency is going to make the same shape as the Bell bands. Ain't been breathing for many years now. Right. If I want to turn it off, I would just go back to 0. And now we've got our high mid frequencies here. Same thing, except we've got our Q selector right here. So you can see just by the shapes. This side over here to the left is going to be a more narrow Q. This is going to be a broader Q. So let's listen to it a little bit. Let's get a little boost going. Sweep the frequencies. Right. Under dirty lights. So let's leave it there and let's go wide and narrow. Listen. Narrow. And broad. This is not freedom. We can also cut if we go the other way. Right? So it's all about experimenting. Just understanding what the knobs is plenty. That's all you need to know, right? The LMF, low mid frequency, is going to do the exact same thing as the high mid frequencies, but you just see right here in your frequency band, it controls different frequencies. So this is going to go all the way down to 600 hertz, all the way up to 7,000 hertz, right? This here, since it's measured in kilohertz, that's why they do the decimal points. This goes all the way to 200 hertz. That 1 means 1,000, up to 2.5, right? So very easy to understand. And then we have another shelf right here for the low filters. So if we wanted to boost 450, all the frequencies under 450 hertz, up 15, this is what it sounds like. Ain't been breathing for many years. Or cut them. So you get the point, right? That's what a semiparametric equalizer does, okay? Now, the last one here is very, very simple. So this is a graphic EQ, and this is probably the most simplest one I could find, but it's very easy to understand. So if we look here, we have 6 frequency bands. Very easy. We have a number, okay? Those look like frequencies to me. And then we have our line, right? So graphic equalizers are always set to the middle being 0, and then we boost or cut. That's it. We don't have any control of how narrow or how wide the frequency bands are. It's going to do what it's wired to do, period. So let's just play these vocals and mess around. Let's boost 500. Yeah, boosting the 500. See, I want to cut that. That makes sense, right? So if I bring that back there, let's just mess with some of these so you kind of get the feeling for it.
Ain't been breathing for many years now.
And then you can combine them, of course.
We lie now. Unpleasant surprises, it hides a
You go extreme.
This is not freedom. This is
The best part about using the graphic equalizers and the semi-parametric equalizers over the parametric equalizers is that you don't get to use your eyes as much. These, you get to play with the knobs, you get to have a mathematical sense of what you're doing, but your eyes don't get to fool you. You use your ears and you listen. That's very important when you're using an EQ. You want to always mix with your ears, don't mix with your eyes. So it's very easy to get really sucked into like what these are doing, and it's like, oh, I want more high end, and then you make more high end, and it's like, okay, and you're tricking yourself into thinking like, yeah, that's what I wanted to hear, but really you're just using your eyes and you're not using your ears, which is the most important part, right? So I do want this to make sense as far as analog gear is concerned too. A lot of you are working in your home studios, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed when you go into an actual recording studio and they have racks upon racks of compressors and EQs, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed with, right? So it's exactly the same. Do not worry. Let's see. This is an EQ that you're going to find in live music all the time. This is the Art Graphic Equalizer. So let's just take a quick look at it. We have our 2 channels. So this is a stereo EQ. We can control the left channel and the right channel, or 2 mono channels separately. So it's a beautiful thing. We have each of our bands. You see our decibels right here on the left and our frequencies up at the top. You can boost and cut whichever one of these frequencies you want. So if I wanted to cut 100 hertz, I would just turn down the 100 hertz. If I wanted to boost 4,000 hertz, I'd come up to 4,000 hertz and I'd boost that up, right? Very simple, very easy. This range button here is either plus or minus 6 decibels or plus or minus 12. That's setting the maximum range for your decibels. So when it's set to plus and minus 12, when you turn it up to plus 12, it's going up 12 decibels. But if I say plus and minus 6, then that basically changes these 12s to 6s. So you have a little bit finer resolution to get a more specific sound and to lock it in. Another EQ that you're going to find all the time in the recording studio is this massive passive. This is a beast equalizer, right? So let's break it down. We see right here in this first band, we've got boost and cut, shelf or bell. So that's just choosing what shape we want. This band here goes from 22 to 1000 hertz. We got this knob right here, which is our boost and our gain. So either we're boosting a certain amount or we're cutting a certain amount depending on what this switch is set to. This right here we can tell is our Q. We've got the shapes, wide band, narrow band. So more to the left is going to be the wider band, to the right is going to be a more narrow band, and then of course our frequency. And just like it says up top, we go from 22 hertz to 1000 hertz. So we're going to pick a frequency, we're going to either boost it or cut it, and we're going to change the shape of it to get that tone that you're looking for. And it does it 4 times with 4 different frequency bands. So this one here is from 560 hertz all the way to 27,000. And same thing, either we're boosting, cutting, it's going to be a shelf or a bell. It's either going to be a broad band or a narrow band, or we're going to go from 560 to 27. We have full control. All right, everyone, so there you go. That was everything that you need to know about how to work with an equalizer, whether it's analog or digital. You should know what all of the knobs do now. Again, for those of you who don't know, my name is Don Ziglioni. This is my family. You want to be a part of this family? Come join us. Join us on the Patreon. Join us in the Discord. Follow me on Instagram. Watch the other videos on YouTube. And check out the live show on twitch.tv/Don Ziglioni. You already know. We're having a blast. I'm having a great time. So come hang out with us, all right? I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll be back with another one very soon. So stay up. See you next time. Peace.